What's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Okay, before we get into the video, if you've been watching my prior videos, you know that I was hosting a giveaway for a $50 gift card to the NBA store for the first 1,000 subscribers, and I'm sure you're curious to know who won this drawing. And yes, we do have a winner, and that is Mr. Eldon Lashley. I hope I'm saying that name right. And spoiler alert, I actually already contacted Eldon via Instagram through his YouTube profile, and he was so quick to respond that I didn't even need to give him the full 24 hours to confirm. So Eldon, hope you enjoy the gift card, man. Nice chatting with you briefly earlier. Go get some nice gear or apparel. Hopefully it's Bulls apparel, but obviously it's your choice. Like I said, guys, I'll be doing more giveaways because I think this kind of thing is fun, and I like giving back to my subscribers because without you guys, the channel would not be able to grow. So make sure you subscribe if you're a Bulls fan and you enjoy the content. And if you want to be considered for future giveaways. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's get into today's video. So guys, as you know, the Bulls' first preseason game is just 2 days away, and their first regular season game is just 2 weeks away from today. And with that, I think we're in a good spot to do a preseason prediction of the Eastern Conference standings and the seeding for the top 8 teams who will be going to the playoffs. Now, I've briefly talked about this as it relates to the Bulls. I honestly think the top 7 teams in the East that made the playoffs last year will also be making it this season. I do think the seedings are going to adjust a bit, and I'll get into that in a second. But essentially, I believe there is only one playoff spot available for a team to snag in the East, and that is Orlando Magic spot that they held last year. And guys, that's because the Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better. You know, it's always talked about how the East is a weaker conference, which sure is still true compared to the West, but the days of, referring to them as the Leastern Conference and the East being significantly weaker overall, with some of the star level players that have migrated from the West and have now moved to the East, like Kevin Durant, you now have Westbrook. It sounds like James Harden is trying to come out to the East. And then, of course, you have lots of players who have started to turn into stars in the East. Like, well, I was gonna say Giannis, he's already a star, but he keeps getting more and more dominant, better and better. You have guys like Trae Young, Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum. You get the pictures. So this obviously, makes it a lot harder for a team like the Bulls to make the playoffs. But if you've been watching my videos, you know that I am predicting the Bulls to make the playoffs at the number 8 spot. And that is actually where I'll start. So at the 8th seed, I have our very own Chicago Bulls. Listen, I know most people have teams like the Hawks, the Wizards, or even some people say the Hornets, which I honestly don't see them coming even close to the playoffs. But, these are more likely the teams to make the playoffs. But first of all, I know I'm biased because I want to see my team make the playoffs. But second, biased aside, guys, I honestly think this Bulls team has a lot of talent, and with the right coaching, the right front office, to establish team chemistry and a culture of winning, I don't see how the Bulls do not make the playoffs. You have the leader in Zach LaVine, who is coming off his best season, and his best season under a terrible coach, so I do expect him to get even better under Donovan. I don't think he'll be putting up the scoring numbers we saw like last year, as he'll need to facilitate, play off the ball a little bit more. Other guys are going to get more involved in overall scoring, rather than just seeing the ISO plays that we saw from Zach LaVine last year under Jim Boylen. But I think he's going to have an even better season. Now, I know a lot of you have been giving me a hard time in the comments for some of my criticisms on LaVine, but that's because he's our best player, so I have high expectations of him. I want him to be that franchise player, and my hope is he proves me wrong. But anyway, then you have, that added young core of Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., Kobe White, and now Patrick Williams, all very gifted, talented players. Then you have complementary pieces like Otto Porter, Thaddeus Young, Daniel Gafford, who I think is an incredibly underrated player and will be the Bulls' most improved player this season. I do feel it would be a disappointment guys, if this team misses the playoffs in the East. The talent is there. The roster is filled out nicely. You know, it's not one of those teams like the Knicks or Cavs where they have too many young guys in the same position and no direction as a whole. So that's why I'm putting the Bulls at number 8. Now for the rest of these, I'm going to kind of move through them a little bit quicker just to kind of keep the video going. But at the number 7 seed, I'm going with the Indiana Pacers. Now, these guys finished 4th in the East last year, but honestly, I think they really overperformed in the regular season. And then, of course, got crushed by the Miami Heat in the first round. They got rid of Nate McMillan as the head coach, which I think was a mistake. They were trying to get Gordon Hayward in a sign-and-trade deal, which would have helped the roster, but then the Hornets decided to way overpay Hayward, and Larry Bird said, no thanks. I don't really see this roster going any further other than a low seed in the East, and that's why I have them at number 7. For the 6th seed, I've got the Toronto Raptors. Now you're probably asking, well, how can you put the Raptors at the 6th seed when they finished 2nd in the East last season? Well, guys, they lost Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry is going to be 35 this year. Obviously, he's still a great player, but his best playing days are behind him. I do like Van Fleet, I like Pascal Siakam, but they're not taking this team to the top in the East. That's why I have them at number 6. For the number 5 seed, I've got the Philadelphia 76ers. Now this one is tricky because I could honestly see this team go as high as the number 2 spot in the East because they have so much star talent in Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and they just upgraded their coach to Doc Rivers. They added Seth Curry and Dwight Howard. So I see promise in this team. I think the real question is the fit. Will this team fit together? Can a new coach utilize the roster properly? Because they have been pretty underwhelming as a team as a whole. I mean, under Mike Brown anyway. So I'm curious to see how this team will pan out. Now at the number 4 seed, I've got the Brooklyn Nets. I know some people are going to, disagree with this prediction because it's like, man, they have Kevin Durant, they have Kyrie Irving, 2 of the best players in the league. Well, yeah, but when healthy, right? Is Kevin Durant going to come back as the same player? The guy hasn't played basketball since June of 2019. He's 32, coming off an Achilles injury, which is one of the worst you could have late in your career. Kyrie is always on and off again injured, and guys, both of these players, as talented as they are a bit of loose cannons at times, not known to always get along with their teammates and coaches. And speaking of coaches, I'm not really so sure about Steve Nash. Listen, Nash was a great player, a great point guard, a great leader, but a lot of times these first-time former player coaches that get hired shortly after retirement, they don't always pan out. I mean, you look at a guy like Jason Kidd, a phenomenal point guard, Hall of Famer, but not the best coach. Derek Fisher is another example, even Jeff Hornacek. So, despite the talent on this team, I'm just not as high on them as, some of these teams that I have in front of them. So at number 3, I've got the Boston Celtics. We all know this is a talented team with guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, a defensive beast in Marcus Smart. They also added Tristan Thompson to help them out with the lack of size that they have at the 5. I'm not quite sure that this team is going to win a title per se, but they'll be a top team in the East. At number 2, I've got the Miami Heat. I think what impressed me most about the Heat this past season, well, really in the bubble, I should say, was not just Jimmy Butler and the incredible season he had, which pains me to say as a Bulls fan, but rather how important team chemistry and culture is for a team. Obviously, you need to have a star player, which they had in Jimmy Butler, and great complementary pieces in Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Andre Iguodala, Goran Dragic. They also brought in Avery Bradley, who I think is going to be a big piece for them off the bench. But it's all about team chemistry and culture. I really do think this team has the ability to go back to the finals because of what they've done with this roster. A great coaching staff, and of course, an amazing front office with Pat Riley at the helm. Then finally, for the number 1 seed, once again, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. they're still the best team in the East because they have the 2-time reigning MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, I don't know how they'll perform in the playoffs, as they always continue to disappoint and underperform in the postseason, but since I'm just predicting the regular season for now, then yes, I say the Bucks finish with the best record in the East, despite the botched Bogdanovic sign and trade deal that they were trying to do with the Kings, which was still so weird to me. They did pick up a few good pieces, namely Drew Holiday, who's a star point guard. They also were able to get DJ Augustine, Bobby Portis. As Bulls fans, at least me anyway, I really value Bobby Portis. I think he's a great asset, great role player. He's not, a star by any means, but a great role player. So fully expect this team to finish with the best record in the East. Like I said, the main question is, how are they going to do in the playoffs? Anyway, would love to hear what you guys think. Thoughts on these predictions. Who are your top 8 teams in the East this season? Let me know in the comments. And as always, guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily content if that interests you. And I will catch you guys in the next one.